Hi there. Okay, so a friend of mine asked me if I could build her a jump starter. And I'm like, no, of course not. I couldn't do that. And then I got thinking about it. And I said, well, I got a bunch of batteries. And I got a BMS laying around. And I said, I got some clips here. Turns out I'm not going to use these, though, because this wire is too thin. So I'll have to come up with some better clips. I'm really concerned about putting big amps through this little bitty wire. I mean, what is that, 12 gauge? So I got myself a little battery meter. I got a USB PD. I can throw 12 volts on up here up the back end, and it'll spit out all kind of USB-C voltage and regular old cell phone charging voltage off of here. And I'm hoping that I can use this guy here. Hang on. I'm hoping I can use this guy here as a charge port. And if I did my reading properly, I should be able to set this for 12 volts so that it'll bring in, if I hook it to a PD charger, and a good 100-watt PD charger, it should give me 12 volts out the back end. So we will see about that. And if that doesn't work, I'll just put a regular barrel connector on it. I 3D printed this tray real quick, just as a start, and I just hot glued these batteries together. So what I've got is I got a 4S 4P battery. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in parallel, 1, 2, 3, 4 in parallel, 1, 2, 3, 4 in parallel, 1, 2, 3, 4 in parallel. So that will give me 12 volts and 2 4, 3 times 4, woo, 12 amps. 12 amps at 12 volts. And that should do for a jump starter, I do believe. This is a 100 amp hour BMS, so that'll definitely give me more than I need. And these are lithium iron phosphate, so they're pretty stable. They're going to take being jerked around. Lithium ion will definitely discharge faster, and I may have to switch over to that, but these are more stable, so I want to start with these and see what I can do. Lithium iron, I could probably get 5 or 6S in this same footprint, or 5 or 6P parallel in the same footprint. I'm going to set this on top of here. I'm going to use a that is a P90 connector, so I will put that somewhere around here. I will put this somewhere around here. Haven't decided exactly yet, and then I'll put this guy over on the back end for sure. And then I've just got to design the top and design all the holes. Me and CAD just do not get along. And then we'll give her a try. Of course, I drive an electric car, so I'm going to need somebody with a battery car with a low battery to be able to give her a jump and see how she does. But we can figure that out later on. All right, let's start with this. I'm going to use my trusty welder, and I'm going to weld all these up. I'm not going to film it because you've seen a million people welding battery tabs before. It's no big deal. So let me weld these up and get the BMS put on, and we'll come back. All right, now that I'm on the other side, we got to be a lot more careful. So I did the number 1 bank and the number 4 bank. Why 1 and 4? I don't know. It's just what I did. Probably because they were the 2 straight ones, and then I got these 2 curved ones. So I covered these with Kapton tape so that while I'm putting the nickel strips on the other ones, I don't accidentally cross over and create any kind of a short. Because remember, the other side is now welded together. So this and this are connected. If I touch these sides, well, then that's a dead short. So we cover these up and be nice and safe. And now I can do the other 2. And I changed the methodology of what I'm doing. So I'm using these flat ones on the bottom, and then I'm using these recycled ones here. These are a little bit thicker on the top. and it's going to give us a nice good chunk of nickel, so that when we're pushing amps through here, these won't overheat. Okay, almost done. Just get this last piece to zip up there. You've got to pause, and I don't know how well you can see that. This just clicked over to 5.2 volts. So you gotta let the capacitors build up, and it's good to let the wires cool down. So this unit came with these pads, and I taped them on because they keep sliding all over the place. So I tape these down like this, and that holds them. And the tips need to be filed on a regular basis. So if you're going to do something like this, make sure you keep some sandpaper or a small file around, and that'll keep your tips nice and uncarboned up, and they work a lot better. And of course, every welding rig, works better with a Puddles Pity Party sticker on there. And if you can play puddles while you're working, it's even better. So you see I'm taping down as I'm going. I've got the first layer, and now I'll put the second layer on here, and that's the end of that, and then we'll move on. Okay, we've got the battery. It's tested at a little over 13 volts. And here we are. I've got my battery management leads all soldered on. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being the positive end, and this being on the negative end. This is the first positive after negative. This is the second positive after negative. This is the third positive after negative, and this is the fourth final positive after negative. So 3, 6, 9, 12 volts. And of course, you know, it's 3.6, 7.2, 9 point, 9.8, and 13 and change. Well, the battery's done. Let's get the BMS hooked up. Alright, so here it is all taped up. We got the negative, we got the positive. So this will be negative, positive 1, negative 1, positive 2, or negative 1, positive 1, negative 2, positive 2, negative 3, positive 3, negative 4, and positive 4. Maybe I'll throw some arrows in there to make that a little easier to see and understand. I'm also going to put a little Kapton tape on this just to hold the paper down. And then this will eventually sit in here like yay. And this guy will sit on here like yay. Battery management cable goes here, and then these guys tap onto all the cell banks, and maybe even we can put this right here. Again, we're gonna have a little isolation. You know, I'll use a little double-sided foam tape so that it's not touching exactly, and then all we got to do is punch a hole in the design a hole in the lid. This will go back here somewhere, and this little guy can go anywhere up top, and that'll give us our battery level. And really, other than the XT90, I called it a P90 before, didn't I? Other than the XT90 here, which I can put up and down wise, slap that right there or right there, and then we connect our battery cables to that. Now off we go. It'd be cool if this thing actually works, huh? Alright, I'll bring you back in a minute. Almost there. Alright. I've got the I've got the top printing. Not the basketball, right? The so I've got the battery connected. I still need to pull it out and tape it down to the bottom. I'm going to put a piece of electrical tape over here also, just because I like covering connections at BMS. So we've got power, and then this is charging power, and this is the same power. They're connected to the other one, and then this is USB and battery level negative, and those go into here, which go into the switch. The switch is on. Battery level works. USB, and again, this is going to be in the lid. And I put a quick disconnect so that if we need to take the lid off again, it won't be so difficult. And then we've got our XT90 here. And if I stick that in there, and then stick that in there, we got 13.27 volts. So that's working. I just got to wait for the lid to print and then stick it all together. We're ready to rock and roll. All right, thanks. All right, here it is finished. I didn't do the best glue job, but you know. So we got 100 watt PD input for power. We got a full battery here. I got 13.8 volt max here, you know, regular 12 volt. This is a high power input, so you can throw some amps at it if you want, and you won't mess up the wires. And like I said earlier in the video, I'm probably going to want to get some different cables for it, or clamps for it. These are the ones I had, but I looked at all the other ones online, all the commercial ones, and they got small wires like this too, so maybe it'll be fine, you know, if it'll, well, sorry about the camera work there. I mean, if it'll reach across the battery post on an automotive battery, I think it will. If not, then I'll definitely get some other ones. So that's it. She's done. You know, I could have done a little beveling on the corners, but I am not Dr. CAD. It's a lot bigger than the ones you buy off Amazon, but not nearly as fun to build, I'll tell you that. So, bring your car over, deaden out your battery. Let's give it a try. Thanks for watching.